and Murphy. As we begin another work period, the American people have one question front of mind. After years and decades of gridlock, will the Senate do something about our nation's gun violence epidemic? It's clear from our lunch today, Democrats are ready to take good, strong action, and every member of this chamber is going to have to answer the question, can we actually get something real done? Across every neighborhood, every school, every city, every town, large and small, Americans are wondering the same thing. What is it going to take? When is it going to be enough? When will Republicans find the courage to stand up to the NRA and act? Democrats are ready to act. We've been ready and waiting a long time. It seems that maybe the tragedy in Buffalo, the tragedy in Uvalde, and just the mounting tragedies and mass shootings we see almost on a daily basis may move some Republicans to act. We have a great champion in the Senate in Senator Murphy leading these talks, and he's been helped ably by Senators Blumenthal and Heinrich and Sinema and Manchin and Coons. Senator Murphy has asked for space to see what progress can be made with Senate Republicans, and we're giving him that space. This issue is too important not to do everything we can to find a bipartisan way forward. You hear a lot of talk from Republicans about the importance of bipartisanship in the Senate. Well, now's the opportunity to show us. Once again, we're giving them the opportunity, the chance to say yes. We're ready and eager to find common ground on something that can actually help address gun violence. We know we won't get it all done at once, but the American people want us to get something done, and they want to see Republicans do something and do something real. They want to feel safe when they go to the grocery store or out to a bar or when they send their kids off to school in the morning. We want that too. But unfortunately, the NRA has had a hammerlock on too many on the other side of the aisle. I've made it clear that the Senate will vote on gun safety legislation in the near future. Senator Murphy is working very closely with a bipartisan group of senators, and we're giving him some time. Not trying everything we can do to do something is not acceptable to the families. And Senator Murphy and I have talked to all of the gun groups, the people who work on gun safety. They are in total accord with this strategy of trying to get a bipartisan agreement, even if it's not everything we want, as long as it makes good progress and it's real. I'm encouraged that a good number of Republicans have reached across the aisle to work with us to try and find a path forward. So we're ready to give it a chance. We don't just need thoughts and prayers. We need votes. We need action. We need at least 10 Republicans who are willing to say yes. Senator Murphy has to go to another meeting, so I'm going to call on him with the acceptance of my colleagues.
Thank you very much, Senator Schumer. All of us were home in our states last week, and I think we all had a common experience. In Connecticut, the level of anxiety and fear and unrest from parents and kids that I talk to has no precedent. Parents and kids are really worried about their safety. And they're equally worried that the adults who run the country aren't serious about protecting our communities and our schools. This, to me, feels like a moment where doing nothing is simply not an option. Now, we have to pass legislation that saves lives. None of us should be interested in just checking a box. But I'm encouraged by the discussions that we have had with Republicans over the course of the last week and a half. Every day we get closer to an agreement, not further away. I'm grateful to all of the members of our caucus who have pitched into these discussions, and I'm grateful to Senator Schumer for giving us the space that we need to land an agreement. Obviously, an agreement that we reach with the Republicans won't come close to the full list of things I think are necessary to curb this epidemic. But the American people are looking for progress. right now. They're looking for action. And my hope is in the coming days we'll be able to come together in a way that gets us 60 plus votes. Remember, there's no other country in the world in which our kids fear for their lives when they go to school. My passion for this issue is not coincidental to the fact that I have a fourth grader, same age as those kids in Uvalde. And my fourth grader should not have had to go to school the day after Uvalde and had the conversations with his classmates that he did about where they would run, where they would hide if the same thing happened to them. Only in America do those conversations happen, and my belief is that Republicans are engaged sincerely in these discussions, and my hope is that we will be able to have a compromised product that saves lives on the table for our colleagues to consider very shortly. And again, I'm very grateful to all of the members of our caucus that have supported us in these efforts. Thanks, Senator Schumer.
Senator Murphy. Thank you. Senator Durbin.
I wanted to look up the answer to a basic question. How many AR-15s are there in the United States? I can't figure out the number. One estimate was 11 million. That's the low estimate. Then I heard two others, 15 million and 20 million, all credible. We're living in a nation where perhaps we have 20 million of these military assault rifles in the hands of individuals. And we have learned, sadly, what happens when they get in the wrong hands, and too often they do. But gun violence comes in many forms, and the laws that we need to pass to end it will take many forms as well. Count me in to end assault weapons. Count me in for real background checks. Count me in for a real penalty for straw purchasing. The list goes on. Put an end to ghost guns. Put me on a list. But the gun violence that I represent in the city of Chicago is a different gun violence. And I spent my break this last week trying to get inside of this and understand it better. I went several off-the-record meetings with Chicago policemen. We sat down and talked about what it meant to walk those mean streets and all of the killing that takes place every weekend, weekend after weekend. And then I went into the violence intervention and sat down with young people from the neighborhood, closed the door and said, tell me what I need to know about gun violence in your life. And they opened up and educated the senator on what gun violence means to them. So I'm on board for the basics. I've been on board co-sponsoring these bills, but I want to add to the list trauma counseling. Give these kids a chance. Some of them come from struggling families. They have no support. They have no guidance at critical moments of their life. And there's a guy standing on the street corner who offers a membership in a gang that gives them some rules and rewards. We've got to replace it with trauma counseling. So if there's a conversation going on with Chris Murphy, I bless him for what he's doing, include in it an attack on gun violence in the cities too. And that means going beyond just the conversation about what's happening in these terrible mass shootings. That's part of bringing peace to America's streets.
Senator Murray.
Well, thank you. People back in my home state of Washington are not focused on whether an idea is bipartisan or not. They are focused on whether it will actually help. And that's what Democrats are focused on as well. If we can work in a bipartisan way to get something meaningful done for families back home, like we did with infrastructure, you can bet we will work to make it happen. In fact, we're working right now to pass another major bipartisan bill to bolster supply chains and boost American competitiveness and bring down prices by making us less reliant on foreign manufacturing. This week, I hope we can pass major bipartisan legislation to make sure that veterans who have been living with chronic illnesses because of toxic exposure during their time in uniform will finally get the health care and benefits they have earned and that they deserve. Soon the Senate Health Committee that I chair will mark up the most comprehensive FDA legislation we have passed in many years and the most comprehensive retirement package our committee has passed in a decade. And we will continue to work on a bipartisan package on mental health and substance use disorders. If we can reach across the aisle and reach an agreement that actually helps families, we will not hesitate to do so. That's why we are urging Republicans to work with us and pass the COVID emergency funding bill so our communities are ready for the next surge or the next new variant. And as you heard, we are ready to work with anyone to help end gun violence. And I really hope that we can reach a deal here. But the answer to gun violence isn't arming teachers or putting guns in our classrooms. And there is a real mental health crisis in this country, one I'm working on in our committee to address in a bipartisan way. But we can't just treat gun violence as a mental health issue. It is a gun issue as well, and we need to get to the root cause of these shootings. So let me be clear. We still need and will keep fighting, no matter what, for bold gun safety legislation, universal background checks, and an assault weapons ban. But if we can come to an agreement with Republicans on solutions that may help save lives, we are ready to get it done. So let me say it again. The question for people back home in Washington State or anywhere else isn't, is this bipartisan? It's just, will this help? That's what we're focused on.
Thank you very much. Today, June 7th, is the 158th day of this year. There have already been 240 mass shootings in the United States, including 13 this past weekend, 3 of them in Michigan, Grand Rapids, Saginaw, Ecorse. Last year, almost 700 mass shootings happened, an average of almost 2 a day. One of them was at Oxford High School in Michigan. 4 young lives were lost, 7 people were injured, and no student in the school was left untouched. On May 26th, hundreds of those students walked out to show their support for the community of Uvalde. This is a scene happening over and over and over again. Heartbroken families, tiny caskets, stuffed animals and candles and flowers left by a school sign. Firearms are now the leading cause of death for American children. Not cancer, not accidental poisonings, and it used to be car accidents. But we did something about it when it was car accidents. In the 1980s, as a new state representative in Michigan, I authored our child safety seat legislation with a Republican colleague in the state Senate. We both had young children. We were very concerned about car accidents being the #1 cause of death for children. We knew something had to be done. Frankly, it was controversial, the idea of mandating that parents had to go out and purchase a car seat and put their child in a safe car seat. But the evidence was there. It was the right thing to do. It got done, and it has saved millions of lives. Over and over again in our country, we change laws to protect American lives. And think about this one. In 2001, one person on a plane to Detroit attempted to blow up a plane with a shoe bomb. What happened? All of us have had to change what happens at the airport in terms of security and taking off our shoes. But since 1968, over 1.5 million people have died from gun violence in America. The #1 cause of death of children today is gun violence. If we care about our children, if we care about people young and old who are just trying to live their lives, it is past time for action. We can do better than thoughts and prayers, and I hope Republicans will join us.
Thank you, Deb. No, 1 minute. Okay, there's one more thing I want to mention before I take questions. This Thursday, the bipartisan January 6th committee will hold its first public hearing. We look forward to the hearing and seeing what is presented. It's so important that the truth about what happened leading up to the insurrection on January 6th and what happened on that day is presented for the world to see. As you may have seen in the reports, one of the people who was just arrested was within 20 feet of me, and I recognized his face. So we should have had an independent commission, but as you all know, Senate Republicans blocked it. But few things obstruct the American people from hearing the truth more than Fox News's cowardly decision not to broadcast Thursday's hearing. After all of the false facts that Fox News has allowed to be put on the air by its commentators and everyone else, they have an obligation to show the true facts by allowing the hearing to be seen by their listeners. Okay, questions on anything? Go ahead, go ahead.
It was another violent weekend of mass shootings. Democrats have called this an urgent issue. So how much time are you willing to give these negotiations? And do you still want to see a deal on gun reform, at least a framework, an agreement by the end of the week?
Senator Murphy has said to me that he hopes to come to an agreement with Senator Cornyn and the other Republicans by the end of the week, and I'm willing to give him that time. Yes.
When do you expect to put a bipartisan bill on the floor?
Same answer.
When?
Senator Murphy expects he can come to an agreement with Senator Cornyn by the end of the week, and I expect to give him that time. If they don't come to that agreement, we'll see what happens after that. Yes.
Any time here, we're expecting a decision from the U.S. Supreme Court on abortion and the Roe v. Wade. Is it still the Democrats' decision to codify Roe? And if so, how are the latest on the topic?
The Women's Health Protection Act has the overwhelming support of our caucus. We think that's the way to go. We've had a vote on it. We're awaiting the court decision. If obviously it's a decision that will impinge on a woman's right to determine her own health care, we're going to look at what further actions we should take.
Leader Schumer,
Yes. We got no one on this side. What?
The importance of whatever the deal that gets struck on guns have teeth, that it matter.
Yes.
Are you committed to putting whatever deal Senators Murphy and Cornyn strike on the floor? I mean, you're not going to turn away.
Look, I have a lot of faith in Senator Murphy and the other Democrats who are negotiating. I don't think that they would bring to us a deal that had no teeth. Yes.
On Iran, the International Atomic Energy Agency is meeting in Vienna this week. The general director said he cannot certify Iran's peaceful intentions for a nuclear program. Are you expecting the situation to develop from bad to worse?
I'll have to wait and see what the International Atomic Energy Agency says. Yes.
Pat Toomey and Lindsey Graham are already saying that talks are probably going to go beyond this week. Would that be acceptable to you? Give them another.
I've given you my answer on that. Yes.
Now, any deal that they cut here, you say, Senator Murphy says, is going to be short of what you would do if you had complete control here. Are you concerned about that being too little and people on the left coming up and saying, hey, you didn't go far enough, it's something that can't
Bottom line is, I have a lot of faith in Senator Murphy and the Democrats who are negotiating, and I don't think they would bring to us a deal without teeth. Last one.
So two questions here. Number one,
You only get one question around here.
okay. You heard earlier today from some testimony about Buffalo shooting, about how doing nothing only fuels the fire. Number one, are you concerned about having nothing done here and more violence? And number two, Congressman Jacobs was concerned about your response to his stance on gun violence and how he switched his viewpoint, saying that, you just said that he was dealing with fire. He was disappointed in that. What's the response?
I was disappointed that Congressman Jacobs, I have a lot of respect for him, I know him, we get along, but he should have fought the NRA and fought the hard right people who don't represent a majority of people in his district, not even close. Thank you, everybody.